Well, it's autumn and it's Pond and Garden, October 2020. We've got leaves and they're absolutely everywhere. There are conkers, sweet chestnuts and ivy growing up all the trees, which is a pain in the certain Facebook forums. So I've got an eventful week. I've been kicked off a Facebook forum for complaining about, believe it or not, ivy. Welcome to this month's October edition of Pond and Garden 2020. I've had lots going on this week. I've been involved in two discussions on two Facebook forums. One on garden site, UK tips and advice. And the other one was on Rastacoy, where Chip hosts the actual forum. Now, I'll talk about both of those forums in detail later, but these are the essentials of what they're about. The first one, on the Garden UK Tips and Advice, involved ivy growing from my neighbour all over my trees, and the debate cost me being kicked off the forum. I was gobsmacked. The other one involved Rastacoy forum, and then revolved around the issue of blue barrel filter systems. And I would like to talk about that one first. Now, as anybody who's been following my YouTube channel knows, I built DIY 4 barrels. One, the inlet, which is the vortex, followed by 2 still beds containing just over 80 litres of K1 each, and then a moving bed which again holds around just over 80 litres of K1 that moves around with air bubbles blown up underneath it. So the debate revolved around whether it's worth putting the effort in and spending the money on a DIY system, or is it easier just to buy an Easy Pod? Now, for me, I think there's no contest. Certainly brand new an Easy Pod will cost you 450 quid, and you only get 30 litres, so I'm told, so I believe, whereas in my filter system I've got 250 litres and 3 barrels. So the barrels themselves cost £12.50 each. I've got a vortex as well, which has also got a Japanese matting in it, so that's 4 barrels. So work that out, that's 50 quid, £12.50 each. The biggest cost was the K1. Now, I paid approximately £52 for 50 litres. So that's where the cost came in. But if you do a 4 barrel system, you don't have to add that amount of K1. You can start off small with 50 litres and gradually build up as your fish stock builds. So it's very, very modifiable. I've also got in the vortex an amalgam 40 watt UVC, so that's right at the bottom underneath the Japanese matting, and it helps to keep the pond absolutely crystal clear. And I promise you it really is now. I had problems initially in June this year, but that involved a product called Aquasolve Resolve. So it killed the algae, it caused all sorts of issues. But that wasn't the barrel system that caused the pond to go unclear. It was the Resolve. Again, going on to the cost, again, some of the cost was the pipe work. I used top quality pipe, grey pipe, designed to be buried in the ground. It's absolutely solid. Now that cost me a lot of money. You don't have to use that quality of pipe if you want to go cheaper. I chose to do so because I wanted this filter to last me 5, 6, 7 years if necessary. However, on the filter system I have got, I can continually modify it. It really isn't that big an issue. I mean, already this year I'm thinking about seriously adding a rotary drum filter to the system, replacing the Vortex, which does a great job, but I have to physically clean it with a pressure washer. It's not a massive job. It takes me 2 minutes to clean it, as I'll show you in a minute, but an RDF does it automatically, and it instantly gets rid of all the fish poop and the gunge. The trouble with the Vortex and the Japanese matting, that gunge stays in there until I physically clean it. And in the meantime, as that gunge builds up, it can cause bacterial issues in the pond. Not good bacteria, bad bacteria that can cause ulcers on the fish and all sorts of issues. That's why I want to get rid of the Vortex. So there's the Japanese matting halfway down the Vortex, and all that I do initially is simply give it a blast with a pressure washer. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with that, but that's essentially what I do. I do the top layer. I'm just going to do that now. So that's done, as you can see. I now take that top layer of matting off, turn it around and give it another blast. There we go, water stopped. Okay, basically I cleaned that. I think I've got a kink in my water supply in the flexible hose, so I'll sort that out. There you go. There we are. So I'll just give that a good blast. So there we are. I've blasted that out. I've taken it out the Vortex, and now all I do is clean the bottom part. Dead easy. There's the drain, and all the way down. So again, I'm not going to bore you with this. I'll just take another minute, but that's it, and that's how I clean that Vortex. It is chlorinated water direct into the pressure washer. What that does me a favour because it kills all the bad bacteria in there. So just because it's tap water, it isn't a problem. So there you go, absolutely clean. So I've used a pressure washer on it. It's taken me, what, 3 minutes at the most, I would say. And what's the issue with that? It's really easy. The only issue I do have is the guns I have cleaned out can eventually build up bad bacteria, which can cause ulcers on the fish, as I've already mentioned. And that's the reason I'm thinking about going to an RDF. Not because this doesn't work and cut out all the fines, because it does. I promise you that. It's a bacteria issues that I have with it. But I clean it around about twice a week, and to date I haven't had any major problems. But with an RDF, it's pretty much self-cleaning. So the submersible amalgam 40 watt UVC is back in, and that also helps to kill the algae that goes through. And that's pretty much the maintenance. All I have to do now is put the 3 small foam filters back on the outlet pipe, just there. And again, this just helps to get to stop all the fines going through to the K1. So there you go, bob on. Going on to the rest of the system, I've got a slide valve in between each barrel, as you can see. Those help me to isolate an individual barrel if necessary. There you go. There's another slide valve just down there in the corner. You can't see it because of the shadow. And I'll just discuss the pipe work as well. So the 4 yellow bull valves there, they go to the drain of each of the barrels. So if you open one of them, you simply drain the barrel for cleaning. The top white valves there are for air. So each one of those pipes leads to each barrel. So the right hand one goes to the moving bed, and the other 3 go to each of the barrels, including the Vortex and the 2 still beds. So there you can see the water, how clean it is. I mean, that's even after I've disturbed all the muck and gunge in those filters. There's a little bit of dust on the top. But look, you can see the Japanese matting halfway down, and that's crystal clear. So that's a vortex with Japanese matting and an amalgam submersible 40-watt UVC bulb to help kill the fines. I've got 2 still beds, there you go, just over 80 litres, about 83 litres perhaps, 83 litres in each barrel. That still, again, that helps to stop the fines, but now I'm finding that the vortex is so effective. To be quite frank, I'm thinking about turning these into moving beds, and I can because I've already got the pipework connected for air. I just need a bigger air pump just to feed every one of them. As it stands, the pump I've got on there can just about feed the fractionator and the moving bed, as you can see there. So let's just repeat then. I've got 1 vortex including Japanese matting and foam filters on the outlet to stop the fines, including a submersible UVC that you can see there. You can't see the light on there because it's underneath the Japanese matting. That helps me to prevent me damaging my eyes. I've then got the 2 still beds containing 82, 83, just over perhaps litres of K1. And again, I'm thinking about turning that into a moving bed, as I am the second still bed, again around about 82, 83 litres of K1. Okay, quite a few shadows in there. That could do cleaning by the looks of it, but that's another task. And then the moving bed just over there, as you can see, and that's a bacteria filter, again with just over 83 litres of K1. Now, is anybody trying to tell me that an EasyPod can compete with that? It can't. An EasyPod only contains 30 litres of K1. It's as simple as that. It might help you with a little bit with your fines, but not to the extent of this, and this is a fraction of the cost. Yeah, you could get a second-hand EasyPod for 200 quid, and that probably works out a little bit cheaper, but you still got to get your paperwork, you still got to get your pipework for the EasyPod. I just don't get it. I'd say one of the biggest expenses, and it was pointed out on Rastercoy's forum, is the pipework, and it is an expense. The ball valves you can get from most online koi supply dealers, and if you go to eBay you can get them comparatively cheap. I forget how much those cost, around about 12 to 15 quid a piece. So that is an expense. Again, you've got those push fit airline fittings there. Those are comparatively cheap. This system altogether, I can tell you the cost now, including all this pipe work, everything, with the exception of the amalgam UVC bulb, that cost me around about 120 quid. So I'm not including that. Sorry, a bit more than 120 quid. I think it's 200 quid. I can't remember now, but I'm not including that submersible UVC. I most certainly am including the K1, the barrels, the slide valves, the pipes, the ball valves, the push fit fittings. I'm not including that there, but the pipe goes all the way down the garden, and that's expensive underground drain pipe, including the 3-inch elbows. It's 3-inch pipe. Just underneath there, you can't see, I've also got hose for the drain that goes underneath there and follows this pipe all the way down. So look, I've got at least, I would say, 20-25 metres of grey pipe. The pipe goes into the sump there. Underneath there, as you probably know if you've seen the previous video, is mountain tree lotus root bacteria house. Now I use that to change from alpha grog to a better media. It's underneath there. Now the alpha grog on top is just for cosmetic purposes, it doesn't really filter anything. I have got a net on the top because I do have herons here, but look at the clarity of the water. Who can complain at that? And the parameters, I promise you, are spot on. I simply do not have an issue with ammonia or nitrate. When I feed heavy, I get a little bit of trace nitrite and the nitrates go up. And that's it, but the clarity is spot on. I know the temperature's gone down a bit, but it's been like that the vast majority of the summer. So for those who argue against the merits of a blue drum filter system, DIY, and try to suggest that an EasyPod can compete with it, I'm sorry, you're wrong. I've got one myself, I use it, and from what I've seen from that EasyPod, it's simply not big enough. Now, I'm not saying that the Nexus systems are not good. The minute you get to 220s and 320 Nexuses, clearly you're in a different game altogether, a different league, a different ball game. Those you can self-clean, and I'm not disputing. If I had the money, would I go down that route? Certainly with the 320, more than likely. But I don't have that sort of money. If how much this cost, which is just over £500, there's a figure, 500 quid for all that, including the K1. I've got 250 litres split between 3 barrels. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. An EasyPod can't compete with that. I don't care what anybody says. The blue barrels, at the end of the day, are no more than containers. Who cares what they look like? If you want something looking nice, swanky, and posh, get yourself, spend over £1,000 on a 320. No problem. I mean, it does the job. Nobody's disputing that. I've seen them all around the country in koi dealerships, and clearly they work. If you haven't got the money, and you still want to keep koi, and you need to keep the cost down, build one. It's not an issue. The only issue is the time it takes, because it does take a little bit of effort, but the savings are there. Period. They work. The only big issue, vortex, but that's a vortex anyway, regardless of whether it's DIY or you purchase one. So yes, I'll probably change that to a RDF. Unfortunately, I can't spend more than £1,500. That's my issue. And I don't want to buy cheap just for the sake of it. And finally, when I do clean the system, I top it up via this EA Detox chlorine and chloramine filter. It's just based on activated carbon, and that tells me how much water goes in the pond. Having said that, I'm not sure about the accuracy of this little meter. It's a digital one, probably cost about 18 quid or something. I need to test it. I keep saying to myself, I'll test how accurate it is, and I haven't. But at least it gives me an idea of how much I put in, and I tend to put in per week around about 200 gallons from 2 filter cleans. So there you go. And up to yet, since I've been running this meter, I've used coming up to 22,000 gallons over the last 3 years, maybe, is it? 4 years? So there we have it then, and that's the blue barrel system. So I've decided to split the October Pond and Garden edition down into 2 parts. The first part, as you've just seen, revolves around the blue barrel filter, as discussed in Rastakoi's forum. The second part revolves around ivy growing over from my neighbour onto my trees. I'll call that part 2. It'll still be Pond and Garden October, but it'll be part 2, and that'll be a separate video. The previous one with the filter went on a little bit too long, went on for about 20 minutes. So I just think to join everything together and discussing the ivy, and autumn will probably be just that little bit too long for this particular video. So thanks a lot, please subscribe and smash that like button.